Alright guys, so at this point it's all done. I'm pretty happy with the work that I've done. But right now is actually about to be the moment of truth because I have no idea if the bed is actually going to fit. Wait, let me take you back to the beginning, and I mean the very beginning. 2019, my son was born, and he was an angel. Good job. But then, something changed.
No. No.
So yeah, he needed a new bed. So this project started where most do, milling. I started with some 4/4 cherry that I picked up from a local mill, and I'm running it through my brand new Grizzly jointer. This thing is awesome. It's made milling up lumber so much easier, so much faster. Really don't know how I got by without it. Then, like you might have guessed, it was time to take them through the table saw. And this is my 3 horsepower Delta Unisaw. It's an older saw, but it works really well. I can't complain. Safety features are limited. It's no saw stop, that's for sure. But hey, it went through this cherry like it was butter. Then for the legs, I decided I wanted something a little bit beefier. So I went with some 6/4 cherry. And this is me just cross-cutting it down to the final dimensions. The bed sits about 28 inches tall. Doesn't need to be very big. It's for a small child, so I figure this will work until he's 5? I don't know. Whatever. Until he doesn't like it anymore, I guess. I tried keeping everything as beefy as I could, so I finished with about 1.25 inches on the legs, and everything else was about 0.8 inches. Since I was working with no plans and just kind of winging it, I decided to put the pieces together and see how I really wanted the overall bed to look. I'll do this a lot. Once I was happy with the layout, I started cross-cutting the pieces. This is a larger piece that holds the bed in place down at the bottom. And you can see my Rayleigh arm saw really needs some love. It's throwing more smoke than sawdust. Oh, this ought to be good. What does this guy want? Alright, so as woodworkers, I think we have a tendency to overcomplicate certain things. And I know I do. So let me show you the simple way to get a good alignment on these boards. So first, we take 2 pieces that are the same thickness as our 2 pieces here. Set those in between. Now we can take the board that's going to be our runner and set it up there. So now all we need are pieces that are the same thickness as our runner. We can set those on the side. Set our boards up like that, and we get a perfect flush edge right there for us to make our marks, take our measurements, and put our biscuits in. Old Betty Crocker style. Okay, now he's done. He must have been wrong, right? He's talking about putting in dominoes. So he's marking for dominoes right now. Okay. All right. Yeah, makes sense. Mark both pieces. Makes sense. Yeah. What do we have here? Looks harmless. Doesn't look shifty at all. Huh? Oh, what's in there? What do you got? What is that? DeWalt? What tool is that? What are those? Oh my god, are those biscuits? Oh! Okay, yes. All joking aside, I am using a biscuit jointer for this. And I'm okay with that. I'm not looking for structural integrity out of these biscuits. All I need is something to help me make sure both my pieces are nice and flush with one another. And the biscuit joiner does that, and it does it fine. And I would like to get a domino at some point, but right now I don't need it and I have this. And you might have one too. If you have one, use it. It's not that big of a deal. Okay? Look, boom, done. Nice. All right, once I had the slots cut, I went ahead and put my biscuits in, put my glue in, and started just jamming everything together. The biscuits will help with the alignment, so really you just need to make sure you're relying on glue to keep it together and clamp force until that glue sets up. And I actually had to get creative with one of my clamps. You can see I have a coupler there to extend the clamp. Just a little something for you. For the longer piece, I didn't have long enough clamps, so I did this, but it worked. Again, because I had no plans, I had to just kind of feel how I wanted the shelf to look. And ultimately, I ended up with kind of something in between, and I'll show you that process. I started by measuring the thickness of the board, which happened to be 0.85. Then I moved that measurement over to my table saw, including the blade. Then I started to run my piece through, and I run the piece through several times until I get the correct depth that I want. Once I had the correct depth, I just ran the board through over and over. Then with enough grooves, I could rip the excess off. And then just use my chisel to clean anything up. And there you go. Looks pretty good. It's a nice little half lap kind of rabbit joint. I like it. Unfortunately, this didn't work on the second piece, which happened to be the longer one. But no big deal. I cut a piece of 1-inch stock pretty much and just bandy clamped it together. This part will never be seen. Once that mistake was dealt with, I started to work on the upright portions of the shelf. So I started by taking the thickness of the board, then I measured the center, and then I cut that thickness in half. Then I used that and I scribed that into each side of the center line. Like that. Then I threw my dado blade on my table saw and started to cut out the dados. And as you can see, it's a nice fit. Slightly loose, but pretty good. Not bad, not bad. Before I could do the dado in the top portion of the shelf, I had to cut it down to its final length. And I also decided that it might look kind of nice to have like a half lap in the corners. So this is me doing a half lap. So once the top piece was cut to length and had a half lap in it, I started marking for the dado that the upright portion would sit in. And I cut that dado on my saw like this. Nice. Then I decided to cut the upright down to length. Then I put that upright in. Upright? Divider? Guess it would be called a divider. Okay, well anyways, I put the divider in. Looks good. Once I had all the pieces cut, it was time to start gluing up. And I did this in 2 parts. I did a bottom section and a top section. This is the bottom section of the smaller piece. The bottom glue up for the big piece was such a pain in the butt, I don't even show you. Here's me doing the top. Here's a good look at me doing the top portion for the smaller piece. So I'm doing a butt joint at the top, so I'm using Steve Ramsey's trick of smashing full strength glue in to that end grain to help get a nice strong bond. Look at me go. All right, then I put that top section onto the bottom section and threw a couple clamps on it. And there you go. Not bad, not bad. For the back panels, I decided I wanted them to sit recessed into the back of the shelf, so I am doing a 1/4 inch rabbet all the way around the back. Man, this was a messy job. And to make the rabbet, I just used this Freud rabbeting bit. It's really cool, comes with a bunch of different bearings to do different size rabbets. And I was really happy to have this done. Man, I got covered in chips. For the back, I decided on this chalkboard faced MDF. And I think it would be really cool for my son to be able to doodle on this when he wants. And since I know he will probably destroy them, I didn't want them to be permanently stuck. So I used small screws to hold them in place all the way around. Like this. I wanted the bed frame to be knockdown style, so I used these threaded inserts I got off Amazon and these black socket cap screws that I got off Amazon as well. To install the hardware, I started with an 1/8 inch pilot bit. Then I used a 3/4 inch Forstner bit. Move that piece out of the way. And then because I had the 1/8 inch pilot bit, I was able to follow that up with a 1/4 inch bit. And then stepped up to a 7/16 bit. And started to thread the inserts in. And man, I was scared of cracking the wood the entire time. Then followed that with a 5/16 bit for the bolt to fit through. And there you go. Easy peasy. Not really. So after a successful dry fit, I started taking everything apart to do a final sanding and finish. So I started sanding. And I sanded. And I really sanded. Oh, I sanded some more. I even sanded by hand. Wow, look at me go. I got bored. I started doing some dowels. Decided it needed dowels in the top. And guess what? I sanded those too. During final assembly, I decided I wanted a little bit more reinforcement for these shelves since my son will be jumping on them. Once those pieces dried, I cleaned the whole thing down with mineral spirits and prepped for finishing. For finish, I'm just using Rubio Monocoat Pure. And I like to use a syringe. I think it makes for a little bit cleaner mixing process. I get 3 parts oil and 1 part accelerator. And I just mix the two up. You want to make sure it's mixed pretty well. You don't want inconsistencies, but it's not rocket science. Mix it. Done. Then I just start to dump it out on the wood. A little bit goes a long way. And I like to brush it in with like a bristle brush. And after about 15 minutes, you can just start to wipe it off. Stuff is really easy to use. Highly recommend. The next day I came out to look at the piece and I was pretty happy with it, but there were a couple spots that were a little flat, like the oil had absorbed more in those spots. So I decided to do another coat. So to prep for the coat, I started scrubbing it with a Scotch-Brite pad, wiping all the dust off, and then mixed up another batch of Rubio and started to apply it. And that brings us back to this. In the frame. So I obviously took measurements, but you know, taking measurements and then building something with those measurements and then actually trying to use those measurements is completely different. So we will see what happens. Wish me luck. I actually don't know, but if you're watching a video about it, it probably went well, or there was just a learning experience. So we'll see. Alright, well, the bed fit. It all worked out really well. I'm really happy with it. and I think he likes it too. So if you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more. Hopefully I can keep making some more videos if he lets me. Can you want anything? You got anything to say, Ron? No? Okay. Cheese. Okay.